And the sun in Capricorn, the sun in Aquarius, in the middle of winter, the practical, rational, cold Aquarians are not as warm and demonstrative as the Leo. So when the sun's in the wintertime, it's the least comfortable place. It's the least showy place when the sun's so dark. And when it's cold, there's not so much time for show. So the pride becomes intellectualized in Aquarius, and it's not that someone who's Aquarius, they have their sun, that's their normal sun, that's their confidence and their pride. That's a good, like, that can be a really good thing, but it's not showy like if the sun were in Leo. So if someone's got the sun in Leo, they figure they got the best. I'm here, I'm the king. So, and the moon in Capricorn to the moon in Cancer is so moody, collects everything, every feeling, every mood, so sensitive and impressionable. Moon in Capricorn is the barren mother. It's almost like the not expressing feeling. I don't show my feelings, I control my feelings. So, it's the framework. If you go into any literature, any Western literature, you're going to find these ideas and associations in poetry, in dramatics, in stories, like the Greek lord, the Greek myths where people lived, and the gods who are on high influencing the affairs of men, the gods were the planets, and they did well or not well depending how they aligned to each planet. It's just astrology. The Iliad, the Odyssey, these are factors of where astrology was the overview of it. Can't understand Shakespeare without knowing astrology. The fault, dear Buddhist, is not in our stars, but it's in ourselves that we are underlings. We don't live up to what the good parts of our nature. So like the moon in Capricorn is a little too practical and a little cold and hard to be sympathetic because it's earthy feelings. And the moon in Cancer is so embellishment. It's so sensitive. So let's just say if you had a mother and a mother or father, one was in moon in Capricorn, and if the kid got in trouble, they go to the moon in Cancer because they get sympathy and emotions. They wouldn't go to moon in Capricorn because they get disciplined. So these qualities, as we come to understand the planets, will come to develop a scope and increase the scope of how these things work. Right now, each sign has a planet that rules it, and a planet that's detriment. That a planet that is the opposite. So when the moon's in Cancer, it really rules it. And even if there's no moon, if Cancer has a moon-like quality, but Saturn in that moon-like quality would be discipline in a sensitive place, and it would be, oh geez, too much. So these are qualities around this. And this is now the last part is the part people have run across perhaps a lot more. These are the key words for the sign. Like if you start with Capricorn, Aries is I am Mars. Taurus is I have Venus. Gemini is I think Mercury. Cancer is I feel is based on the moon. The key words are just another way of saying the planetary rulership in a behavioral pattern. So like I feel is a moon thing. It's the rule. It's like main key word for Cancer. I will do this. I will do this. I will be best. That's the Leo. That's the sun in Leo. I analyze. That's the Mercury and Virgo rulership of Virgo. I balance. I harmonize. That's the Venus rulership of Libra. I desire is the key word of Scorpio. That's the Mars in Scorpio, the passion. I want you. You're mine. With it, that desire. It's very different than I am just whatever I'm doing. It's the Mars and Aries. I understand is the Jupiter in Sagittarius. I believe. Spaces. So someone can say, I understand you. Wow, isn't understanding great? Or I believe you. That's a very different thing. But still, they involve a deeper way of looking at things. And Capricorn is I use. Saturn is utilitarian. It's practical. I use this. This is what I got to use. And Capricorn, the Aquarius, knowledge, this is I know. I know this, I respect this, respect my ideas, I know what's real, or I know what has to be done. So these are the key words for the signs. You'll see these in a lot of books about the signs. Somebody say I am, and they write a whole lot of stories about I am. They're great to read because they stretch your ability, even though they're not dealing with everything on astrology. The sun sign books, some books deal with pieces. They're great to read because you see the applications of this. Linda Goodman's sun signs, she really personalized the qualities of each sign, and you can start to see them in it. So she, even though she wasn't necessarily the best astrologer, she was a great writer and really wrote well to express the personal qualities of the sun sign. So everybody loved her and many people came into astrology because of her. Okay, so this is the final picture of all of them. It has the seasons in the middle, the daylight increasing, darkness has those in the middle. Then it has the masculine, feminine, modes, the sign, the elements, the planetary rulerships, and the keywords. And then the colors. And the colors are put there. So this is the basic scale of what the zodiacs mean. When you put by itself, it's all just a neutral scale. When you put a planet there, you put a sun there, you're born at a certain time, that area becomes accentuated, and all of those factors start to come into play in your life. This is where astrology gets so fascinating. You know, like, wow, it's so real. When I had my first chart done, my first reaction was, you mean I'm supposed to be like this? All my life I've been, don't do this, don't do that, don't be this, don't do this. I've been nagged all my life, and when I had the chart done first in my mid-20s, instantly it became the first time I ever get positive feedback for who I was. It became almost the love of my life, one of the loves of my life. My interest in my life became the hobby. I kept it with me, and it's 50 years later, it's still interesting. So this is a tool. This is the scale of color and the zodiac and the different meanings and layers of implication. And as you study the planets and the signs, you see the planet in each of these categories, and you make the association to it, and then it builds up to be the whole totem pole, or the whole impression of a person. Now, there's one last thing. I'll take a few extra minutes to do. Oh yeah, we're okay. In the southern hemisphere, the seasons are reversed. We got Taurus. We're in Taurus now. They're in Scorpio. When it's springtime here, it's fall there. But the books on astrology were written from the northern hemisphere mostly. So many people who learned astrology in the southern hemisphere have learned the cardinal, fixed, mutable, fire, water, air, earth. And they didn't learn the seasons and the light increasing or not lighttime increasing. So many people believe Libra, in the southern hemisphere, Libra is springtime and Aries is the fall. And Capricorn is the summer and Cancer is the winter. The signs they believe they're the same as the northern hemisphere. That's not correct, because the rulerships aren't the same. Like when it's summer, how's it going to be Capricorn? When it's middle of winter, it's not Leo. When it's mating season and everybody's being proud and strutting and going out to push their stuff and to mate, that's Aries. That's the impulse of spring. It's not, oh, let's go out and be nice and maybe we'll find someone we like to meet to be able to mate. It doesn't work like that. Not nature. So to me, if astrology is just a symbol, you can look at these things mathematically, symbolically, and make associations to interpret charts. And you won't be, in some ways you'll be right up, and in other ways it won't be that far off. But if astrology is connected to nature and how your soul is connected to life and what your potentials are, it's much more inclusive and sensitive to that. And these changes are really important. So when you look at this is Southern Hemisphere chart, you can see here's the Libra. It's almost like you took one half. These are two charts, but if you fold them in the middle, they go back to back. The one on the right would be on the back of the others. So you would see that the red of Aries would be on the back of the green of Libra. The Taurus would be on the back of Scorpio. You just look at, if you took your chart and you looked it up on a piece of paper and you put it up to a light and you turned it around the opposite and looked it through the back way, the other side, you would have the Southern Hemisphere horoscope. So this just shows it. So it looks like a mirror that's reversed. So the pattern is reversed. The signs, the planet signs are reversed. So if it was if the sun in Libra becomes the sun in Aries in the Southern Hemisphere, both are cardinal, but very different quality, okay, with the daylight and nighttime. So, okay, I'm going to take one chart to quickly go through this. This is Paul Hogan, Crocodile Dundee. He was an actor. He had a movie, Crocodile Dundee. He was the redneck guy that's out with the crocodiles and in the wilderness. Let's just say not the most socially cultured person, but naturally adventurous person. So he represented the Aries ideal. Somebody just go out into the wilderness and take care of himself, and he could survive. And there he was, the bravado. So by his nature, now this is just the actor of the character. So it's taking a jump from there. But if you did the Northern Hemisphere chart, he's October 8th, he would be the Libra with a Leo moon. So you have the proud showing person, but you have the Libra, this sweet, sensitive, sharing, indecisive. But as soon as, if you reverse the signs, immediately he becomes the Aries with Aquarius moon. So you have the Aries, who's impulsive, reckless, and adventurous. He really lived up to the Aries role. And instead of the Leo, he would have the Aquarius moon, and it would be much more knowledgeable, and he has his fixed ways of knowing how to do things and how to get around. So to me, this Libra Sun, the Aries Sun, it was instantly on seeing it. I've done a lot of charts just to compare the two. But if you were encouraging Paul Hook doing the Northern Hemisphere chart and encouraging him to be sweet, pleasant, follow his vision, you're not encouraging him in a way that he's going to be content with. You're encouraging him in a way that's going to take him away from the quality of his life. When you say, no, you're supposed to be impulsive, go for things, be a little bit more reckless and be more courageous, just be knowledgeable of what you're doing, you would be encouraging him to go more. So if you had a kid and you're encouraging one way rather than the other, that's a huge difference. So reinforcing their attitude or what's going to make them healthy or happy. Okay, so these are advanced charts. They're not so much available yet. One day I'll get my computer program made so you can get these charts done. So normally on a computer, you get a chart that looks like this. They don't show up that good on the screen, so I've made the sign divisions of the zodiac thicker so you can see them. But here's the chart would be polar, and on the computer printouts, I always put the ascendant on the left. So here we have the planets in the houses, the Sun in Libra. But if you do, and none of the computer's programs do the Southern Hemisphere chart properly right now. They all do it like a Northern Hemisphere chart. So what you do when you have a Southern Hemisphere chart, you take this chart, you print it out. I always color in the aspects and shade in the half below the horizon. We'll get to this. But what I do is this is the same chart, but what I've done is I've made an X over where the symbol is for Aries, Taurus. For each of the signs of the zodiac, crossed them out, and on each edge I've written the two signs, the opposite signs. So this was Sag, I crossed it out, put Gemini, Gemini. This was Scorpio, I crossed it out, I put Taurus, Taurus. So everything else stays the same. The planet's aspects, the planet's houses, they stay in the same place. It's only the signs that reverse. So only the attitude changes, not the circumstances, not the aspects, just the attitude. It's the important thing, especially if you're trying to come to completion of your life or a spiritual understanding. So when you write, this is just showing you very quickly. At a later stage, we have a whole workshop on just the Southern Hemisphere horoscope. But right now, just cross out the ones on both sides, write the signs in twice. So when you see the signs twice, you know you're automatically in a Southern Hemisphere chart. But you can still, all the ephemeris, everything you look at, are still putting the planets, the transits, and the planets will still be in the Northern Hemisphere. So you still put them in like they're in Scorpio, but you're interpreting them like they're in Taurus. Because you have to change the whole system to be in the Southern Hemisphere or the Northern Hemisphere. So this is a big difference. But for the natal charts for now, you get the chart, you just change the signs, and it reminds you to deal with the right attitudes. He's born in the springtime, it's Aries. Even though it's October 8th in the Southern Hemisphere, it's still springtime. Okay, so that's basically, I just wanted to show you this little bit, and you have it, so you have these charts to look over with. But this is a simple way of using the technology we have today, getting the chart, just crossing out the signs and put the opposite signs in, and you have the Southern Hemisphere chart. Of course, the fire, water, air, earth elements, which is put on the top corner, they shouldn't be there because you'd wipe those out because they would be different. The elements would be different. Cardinal, fixed, mutable would be the same, but fire, water, air, and earth would be changed. And yeah, so the point, so this is just basically the way to go. This is a good beginning to the science, just seeing the categories that are there. And now you just got to sit on it. You got to reflect on it. You got to see it in charts. And every now and then you can always, it never hurts you to go back and go over the signs of the zodiac, just to reflect on it, or read what someone else says, or read. Some people will know how the cardinal, fixed, mutable, and the fire, water, earth really wonderfully explained. Some people have rulerships wonderfully explained. If there were a book that had it all done perfectly, I'd be selling it completely. But there's a lot of differences and eccentricities by different astrologers. They would think I'm very eccentric for adding the seasons and the light and the dark in. But it's a mixed thing. There's maybe a third of the people use traditional rulerships like I have up to Saturn. And the majority of people in the West are using Uranus, Neptune, Pluto for the signs they're in. So this takes some time. Okay,